welcome to KocoSports. I am the huge one, aka the idiot Dave Coco. I'm joined by one of the original founders, Jerry O'Neill. Jerry O'Neill, welcome. We are testing out some equipment. We're testing out some audio podcast options. We're planning on doing a weekly podcast in the future, but I'm a little sick. Jerry's a little busy, so that's a future project, but we're testing it out. But we both just watched the CM Punk fight, and I was rooting for him. I was rooting for him with my whole heart. I wasn't betting on him, but I was rooting on him. And his fans in Chicago kind of like, they were unsure, but then he had that one. Yeah. So what was your thoughts on the fight? Well, first off, say the results of the fight, and then we'll talk about our opinions and what could have happened differently.
Well, we had Mike Jackson, who had a unanimous exactly, and I had to laugh when Joe Rogan kept talking about how good Michael Jackson was on his feet. No, so we had Mike Jackson gets a unanimous decision victory over CM Punk, and the big news is that CM Punk actually survived 3 rounds in the UFC. So he's had 3 full rounds in the UFC. He definitely didn't. He definitely didn't look good.
It wasn't a thriller. I'll be here all week. I can I put on a conspiracy cap? I think this guy knew, Mike Jackson knew that he could fucking end him at any moment. So he just like laid back and enjoyed the television time. And I'm not saying that, he was told, but I don't know. To me, it just seems like it was a boxer, amateur MMA fighter going easy on someone that probably should not be there, even though, my heart of hearts, I'm a CM Punk guy, but youch.
Yeah, I don't think that Mike Jackson was giving it everything that he could have. He definitely was holding back. He looked too comfortable. He looked too relaxed. He was toying with CM Punk. I mean, especially in the 3rd round, Punk didn't look like he had the energy to even stand upright at times, and Jackson looked like he could have taken him out at any point at all. But yeah, I think you're right. I think that he was enjoying the exposure, enjoying the TV time. This is a guy who's had 9 amateur MMA fights. He's had a boxing career. He definitely isn't someone who normally would be fighting on the level of UFC. That one pro fight that he had was also a loss to Mickey Gall. So yeah, he hasn't really had that much exposure, and to be in there with a celebrity, the likes of CM Punk, have all those eyeballs on him, and to look as cool and calm and in control as Mike Jackson did. Yeah. I mean, that was definitely a benefit to his career. And I don't know. I just it's a shame, because I really was rooting for Punk. He's had a long week, what with the trial with WWE and the WWE doctors, and it would have been like that sort of fairy tale ending for him. But I don't know. Do you think he's gained enough respect back? And they talked about it a lot during the fight. They talked about how much respect everyone had for the effort and the work that CM Punk had put in.
A lot of heart.
Yeah, a lot of heart. And do you think, because going back, Punk said he was done with pro wrestling, but I think we're going to see him back sooner or later. I don't think he could have come back after he couldn't have come back to pro wrestling after the loss to Mickey Gall, because it was just too embarrassing. And it removed, any kind of thunder that he would have had going back to the wrestling world. Now, obviously a win would have sent him back. He could have gone back to the wrestling world and brought that thunder with him. Do you think that he gained enough respect to make an impact when he comes back to pro wrestling? Because it's going to happen sooner or later.
Yeah, I think he has. I mean, I don't know. I just think it will always be a cheap shot in a promo. So like, if he does ever go back, it'll just be like, oh yeah, well, we saw how you did in UFC. Like, it'll just be a cheap shot that he has to always have to deal with. But I think his fans will love him no matter what and bring him back. But I don't know if he's going back. I mean, he's pretty smart with his money, allegedly. And to me, I just want to get back to this fight. It reminded me of, if you do jiu-jitsu or any martial art, it reminded me of a white belt rolling really hard with like a blue belt. The blue belt, he's trying every now and then, but he's like, I don't want to kill this kid. You know what I mean? So it had that feel like when you go to a dojo and someone's way more advanced and they're just being kind. And that's great. That's a great thing about martial arts in a dojo. I just don't know if that should be the type of fight you want to see at the highest level. You know what I mean?
No, it's definitely not what you want to see on a UFC main card pay-per-view, especially given the fact that you had Overeem on the pre-show. So I'm not quite sure how I felt about that. And this is coming from someone who is, I'm a wrestling fan. I love pro wrestling. I love Punk, but I just don't, especially after he had the initial loss, the first time around, when you didn't know what was going to happen because no one knew what his background was really like, and you were like, okay, maybe he could surprise us all. But we saw what happened the first time around, and you still then take him and put him on the main card when you got Overeem main event in your pre-show.
Yeah, that was a bit much. I felt bad for Overeem. I thought the line of the night was, "This ain't a Rocky Balboa movie." They should have renamed that movie "Bad Refereeing." So yeah, to me, he had heart, but he was overmatched, and I just hope that he comes back. But if he does come back to wrestling, I honestly think it'll be through All In and through the Indies again, because like in WWE, what does he have left to prove? You know what I mean?
Well, and again, kind of like they said on commentary, is sometimes having heart just means you get beat for longer.
Yeah. So, but to me, I enjoyed it, but I never want to see it again. You know what I mean? It's kind of like I don't know. It reminds me of the Crusty episode. You ever seen Crusty, where I think Homer is beating the hell out of Krusty, or Krusty's beating the hell out of him, or whatever. I forget how the meme or slash joke goes, but a little kid's like, "Stop it! You're killing him." That's how I feel every time CM Punk gets in the octagon. I just like, I love you, Punk, but stop it! They're killing him. So that, and also the spinny kicks was ridiculous.
Oh my
the
God!
Spinning kicks.
Okay, so I gotta just say, both me and Dave were watching that opening round, and I think when he got over to his corner, they told him, "Okay, don't worry so much about the kicks. In other words, stop doing that." But the full spin on every kick that he was doing, we were both screaming at the screen, telling him to stop. Yeah, and another thing was, I don't know if it's just me, but did CM Punk in WWE look like a much more healthy man than the CM Punk that we've seen in UFC? There's just something about him when he came out there. You're like, he just didn't look well. He didn't look like he was. He definitely didn't look like he was on the top of his game, let alone someone who should be getting into a cage. And I'm not saying that he didn't train hard, because we know that he did, but I don't know. Like, he didn't give me the impression of someone who was like an athlete or someone who was extremely healthy going into the cage. And we saw how quickly he gassed and got blown up. Yeah, I don't know. Just didn't seem like he should be. He didn't seem like he should be there, and that's no knock on all the work that he's put in. I know that he worked incredibly hard to get there, but
all right, I got a couple key questions here. One, is this an episode of Friends? Is this the billionaire who just keeps trying to be UFC champion no matter what and never gives up? Is this Punk's last fight, or do you think he's like, I'm not the Ultimate Fighting Champion, I'm gonna keep doing, and then Monica's gonna leave him? What's your call? Do you remember that episode?
I don't know, but if this was a reality show, then I think I would probably watch it. No, I mean, like, I don't think that we're going to. I honestly don't think we're going to see him continue at this point. To me, maybe I'm underestimating his heart. Maybe I'm underestimating it. But if he does continue, it certainly can't be in the UFC, because how many more people are they going to find for him to fight?
Yeah.
How do you continue to find people? I mean, like, I'm available. I'll fight him next. It's like you can't keep bringing in guys to the that have that sort of lack of experience and putting them on that big of a stage. The one-time thing with Mickey Gall, you fair enough, okay, but the second time was pushing it with Mike Jackson. I just don't know at this point, like, who else they could find to put him against. And if they did find someone else, that's someone who definitely does not deserve to be there. So, I mean, the combination of that plus CM Punk's age, he doesn't have an MMA career in front of him. He's gone in there and he's proved a point. He loves MMA. He's put his body on the line twice to compete in the UFC. But I don't see him having an MMA career past this.
Yeah, and then even then, how much would you go? What about pro wrestling career? Do you see him at All In? Do you see him making a WWE return, Impact, New Japan? Do you think he's done? He's retired. He's off to the sunset. He's gonna write some comics. But you're CM Punk's guidance counselor, okay? CM Punk, he's a little down in the dumps. AJ Lee's there. Monica just left him. What do you tell him as a guidance counselor? Where does he go from here?
Well, first of all, I don't want to hear what is MC Grunge doing in the Impact Zone, because I just don't think that we're going to see him there at all. I think New Japan is a definite possibility. All In, I believe you could see an appearance from him at All In. I don't think it's going to be in a wrestling capacity, especially this soon after. He just said, "I'm completely done. I'm absolutely done. I'm unequivocally done with pro wrestling." He said he was not going back to wrestling. So if he shows up there, to support the show, to make an appearance, I think that's fine. I think from there you'd have to have some kind of angle set up that brings him back in. You can't just bring him back and have him work a match. Definitely Japan. I can see, and Dave, you can maybe expand on this a little bit, but in Japan they seem to be a lot more open to the crossover stuff between different combat sports, and they've always sort of had placed a value on martial arts, and bringing that into pro wrestling. So I think that the understanding in Japan would make it different, so that they can look at someone like CM Punk and go, "Oh, we respect what he's done in pro wrestling, and we respect that he had the guts to go out there and get involved in MMA." I mean, because we've seen people like Jushin Liger and others over in Japan who went out and got into MMA and didn't fare so well. It didn't affect their pro wrestling career when they came back. So I think Japan might be the place to start to rebuild the pro wrestling career if he chooses to do that.
Yeah, definitely, and none of that, but one thing that I love about Japan, and I don't know if maturity is the right word, but when I talk to Westerners and say, "Oh, I love pro wrestling and I love MMA," they're like, "How could you? You have to make a fucking decision, you fucking loser!" And they like lose their shit. Like, whoa! I can like both. It's cool. Pro wrestling's fake. I'm an insider. I got that. So I got the email newsletter. Thanks for fucking the update. But here, it's just like, I've never, ever had a problem. I just go to a Japanese coworker and be like, "Yeah, I like pro wrestling and mixed martial arts." I'm like, "Oh, that's cool. That makes sense." So, like, I don't know if it's a mature thing. I don't know if it's just pro wrestling and martial arts outside of UFC denying it all came from pro wrestling. And so then it's, okay, whatever. They're connected. Got it. But I think that's why he might do better. So, like, can I fantasy book here for a little bit? Because I'm sure MMA fans will love that.
Go for it.
I think if Omega wins and he says, "I'm the best in the world," or Cody Rhodes says, "I'm the best in the world," they play CM Punk's music, and that's how All End ends. And then that starts his feud in New Japan.
Okay, yeah, that I could see that working, and I definitely think Japan is the way to go, because I don't think that the North American audiences are going to be quite as forgiving, to someone coming in with a loss. I mean, we've seen, and in saying that, Brock Lesnar, his first MMA fight was a win, but his first UFC fight, he had a loss, but it wasn't, it wasn't quite as bad as it was nowhere near as bad as Punk's first UFC loss. I think that he's had a little bit of time now to, or he's had a little bit of respect restored, and just based on the fact that he went 3 rounds and he lasted, even though Jackson probably allowed him to last the 3 rounds. But no, I think that the Japanese audience would definitely be more open to accepting him back in pro wrestling. And once he gets back there and puts on a couple of 5-star matches with whoever, those get out, and that's his ticket to come back into major North American wrestling. Whether we ever see him do that or not, because of the relationship with WWE and the lawsuits, stranger things have happened. So it's definitely a possibility.
And there's a good chance he might just retire. Be like, see ya, I'm gonna go write fucking Thor. But
okay, yeah. Let me just ask you. You're a comic book guy. I'm not a comic book guy. I watch some of the Marvel. I watch the Marvel movies and stuff, but I'm not a comic book guy. But is CM Punk actually any good at writing comic books?
What I've read is kind of like a one-off, and it wasn't bad, but it wasn't spectacular. So I like to see what he does more. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Let's go with a pro wrestling rating. Out of a 5-star match, I'd give him a 3-star comic. It got the job done. It's not like, holy shit, this is amazing. It fucking changed my fucking view on comics forever. But at the same time, it wasn't his UFC career. So I'm sorry. But yeah, so there you go.
I love how we're both trying to find a career path for him now. They're like, oh, the poor guy, we got to find something for him to do.
I just don't want to see him get in the UFC ring, octagon again, or a Pride ring, or a Bellator, or fucking backyard fights in Miami. I just Rio Warriors. Remember Rio Warriors? Oh, that was like the greatest thing for 2 weeks. It was so controversial. Anyway, I'm old.
I don't know. Maybe bum fights.
Yeah, oh, nice. Just Punk, please, dude, don't go back out. We love you, Punk. We love you, and we're always gonna root for you. I think that's the sad part. I think if Punk has another UFC fight, we'll still watch and root for you. I think we're behind you all the way. We're just, it's like Star Wars. We're questioning your purple hair decisions. We're still behind you, but we're like, hey, maybe we should let us in on it. So there you go. And one thing, Joe Rogan and his sons, what the fuck, man? Is everyone now Joe Rogan Jr.? Just let Joe Rogan do everything. That's it. But Joe Rogan would be a great coach. Like, I was screaming when Punk was on the bottom, put your foot on his hips, wiggle out of there, just wiggle. I mean, he was fighting, he was going for it, but yeah. But Joe Rogan was like, I think Joe Rogan should be a coach. Or like, if I was like a MMA fighter, I'd just be like, what did Joe Rogan say? Like, I'd have a guy in my corner just listening to Joe Rogan.
I felt like the oldest person ever watching this event, because I mean, I used to follow UFC extremely closely. I still do, but not as close as I used to. But I tune in, and first of all, I'm like, when you don't recognize the other commentators on screen, and you're like, there's Rogan and a couple of mini-me's, and then I'm sitting there and I'm looking at Punk and I'm like, Scoot, come on, Scoot. Dave, why ain't he scooting? Dave's like, I don't know why he ain't scooting. But it's just like, there's, when you don't recognize people, and you're like, so yeah, I used to follow it a lot more closely than I did, and I'm going to probably have to start following it a little more closely again.
I feel like we're the old bed. We're the old bed of UFC fans. Like we're like, and we were talking about this off the air. At sumo, you always go to live sumo, and there's that old guy that's just there for the experience, but hasn't realized people retired or haven't realized that there's new fighters. We're the old bed of UFC. We're like, where is Akibono? Where is Royce Gracie? I was talking to this girl at work, and she's like really big into UFC, and she's like, oh, I'm like, oh yeah, I really love UFC, but I love the older fighters because I've been watching it for so long and I'm so old. And she's like, oh, you mean older fighters like Faber? And I was like, no, Faber's a young fighter. What the fuck is going on? I'm so old. That's the moral of this story. So yeah, I have to find out who these young fighters are. So yeah, the CM Punk guy though, I think he could turn shit around. He's got some potential. I can't even say that with a straight face. I love you, Punk. I love you with all my heart, but know what it is? It's like seeing your brother get his ass whooped and like he can't win, but he's like, I'm gonna try again tomorrow. No. Come here, Phil. This ain't a good idea. Can I call you Phil? It's a horrible idea. So
yeah. I got nothing to add to that.
So I'm going to go watch the rest of the UFC. We just decided to test out this equipment, do some podcasting, high fives, all that. Expect more than us. But, dude, someone in the chat made the ultimate shirt. Coco316 says, I just half-assed you. Because we always make half-assed promises. But we're honest about it. But our goal is to do one with Boom Boom weekly, do one with you weekly and cut it up and put it everywhere. And then slowly but surely sneak other shows in and then rebuild our empire one step at a time. All right, let's wrap this up. Operation Freak Show, go buy it now. KocoSports.net. Check in every now and then. Cherry might update it. Like, comment, subscribe to Coco Sports. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Dave Coco. And sometimes I walk the mean streets of Kawasaki. So if you see me, give me a high five. Go Frontiers. Go Frontiers. That's my American football team. We whoop some ass. And with that, I am over.